One of the things that the studio and Ed wanted were some new bugs.
The bug technology has gotten better, and we had to build these bigger and bigger bugs.
We're coming up with a look that's really dynamic and exciting and very much unique.
You have layers of CGI bugs sometimes. Sometimes they're full-scale puppets, so there's a lot of things that all have to fit together.
We knew it was a lot to take on, but that was the challenge of it.
It's a crap load of bugs, and that's what we really enjoy doing.
I was very interested in this type of project. I've always been interested in this sort of notion of creatures on another planet. It was a genre of films that I grew up with. And I liked the first Starship Troopers film quite a bit.
Ed has such a very precise vision of what he wants for all these movies. He's been involved with all of them from the very beginning. So you're designing new creatures that have to match with the theme of the original ones.
This is a very large and very complicated job. It's probably the biggest job that we've done as far as the amount of shots.
We had to solve the physical, mechanical issues of trying to make something look real, look scary, look believable. We knew there would be a number of shots, but I was a little surprised at how many that we needed to get.
One of the ways to get this film going and the various critters was to draw this stuff out far in advance of the start of live action, with Ed looking over our shoulder and sort of cutting to the chase immediately, making a few sketches and building.
Ed has been very generous with letting us design and go with what our gut feeling was. And I think the end result is very much of our own approach.
Robert and Denny, the geniuses. I worked on a ton of stuff with them. And I think the most magical thing is they do so much stuff in camera. You know, they do digital and they do compositing, but they try to do as much as they can practical effects.
Normally what everyone's doing nowadays is shooting CGI. You just shoot the actors pretending, and then you put it all in later. Why I think this is more exciting is the actors get to play off of something, they get to see it, they get to react, it's real, and you don't have to wait 6 months to see it. What you see is what you get, and it adds a little bit more reality to the movie.
The Bombardier bug was one of the critters that would be handled as a creature effect on the set.
The Bombardier is about the size of a basketball, but it could bounce and stuff. And that was the one you threw in as the incoming round comes in.
People would line up and take their best shot at trying to pitch these things like a basketball, hit a set at a certain angle so it would ricochet and bounce, and it was like playing pool on a gigantic scale.
We had one that would actually blow up. So we would be off camera, throw the thing in, it would bounce. Everybody would hit the dirt like a big hand grenade. And we're not sure exactly who or what shoots those things, but it's probably awful.
We've had a lot of discussions on the warrior bugs, the way they react, the way they respond.
In the first movie, they mostly look like ants moving over hills in all cases, and it's the mass of bugs that's scary. But here, they have moments where they will stop and turn and howl, and the other bugs will come in, and they'll look, and then they'll move.
Sometimes it's almost like a canine behavior, where they're in packs and they communicate that with yelps, calling the others to show up.
There's a whole sequence where one of the characters is herded and chased into a bunch of rocks. So there's a little more sense of they're doing something intentional, as opposed to just simply swarming.
A lot of the warriors are CG. But we did have a real, a full-scale warrior on the set, which we used more than we thought we would.
We have these bugs all catching fire and basically being burnt to a crisp. We found that it made much more sense to do those with physical models and then manipulate them in post. This particular one was burned 4 or 5 times and survived it. It's a tough bug. Well, I think he's losing his head a little bit.
The scorpion is another creature that did need to have a lot of attention to detail.
The notion that Ed had that there was a scorpion-class warrior. Ultimately, this thing had to be almost like an armored vehicle stepping right into the nest of the troopers, and would have to be able to ward off a lot of firepower So it needed a lot of armor on its body, and from that standpoint, needed to feel like it was weighted down and crawling very sluggishly across the ground, very sluggishly and powerfully. So it almost felt like it was somewhere between a machine and an insect. This comes from Ed. This was his notion.
Designing the Scorpion was completely a whole new thing for us. The biggest challenge was taking a design that Ed would like and really making it something practical that could be moved around and stuff, and plus in a relatively short amount of time.
Essentially, we shot the Scorpion in as straightforward as a manner with as many puppeteers as it took to handle the various parts of it. But we knew it couldn't do everything that was needed for the final shots in and of itself. So the idea is that after the fact, we would go in and alter its movement, like the tail.
The first you see of the Scorpion in the film is its tail. We get a glimpse of it, and we don't even know exactly what it is. It's like a snake-like thing whipping out over between the trenches.
The whole idea was that it was a cross between a Scorpion and a bulldozer and a plasma cannon.
So this is the escalation of the bug weaponry. The original brain bug is revisited. It's much older now, and it's sort of grosser looking.
Our whole idea with that was that it had been captured at the end of the first movie. It had been caged for 10 years. So it was kind of like I treated it like it was almost like veal. So it's sort of sagging and rotting a little bit, and it's very angry this time.
It was a bit of a challenge to shoot because there's a lot of elements that have to work right when doing a creature. You've got people hand operating all the little pieces to it. The eyes are moving. The body, such as it is breathing. It's moving in and out, and there's tentacles, and there's various parts to all of these things. All have to be coordinated just right. There are puppeteers down below. You can faintly make them out down here. Several people down below were operating various aspects of it.
So we took some fair liberties with the original design and tried to make it more menacing, more sinister, and give it a sense that some time has passed.
And then there's another bug at the end. It's the biggest bug of all.
The description of Behemecoatyl in the script was almost very cosmic. It came across as eyes, claws, almost disembodied pieces.
It's very organic. It's kind of insect, part something organic shapes, part something out of the earth.
Ultimately, I just had a crazy notion in the middle of the night about it. The kind of thing when you turn over a rock and you see centipedes and you just see legs and legs and legs and this sort of crawly bugness. I made a sketch, and it was more or less a kind of a Zen nightmare drawing.
Originally, that was something I think they were going to mostly take care of themselves, but when I saw it, I told Robert, I said, you have to let me build this.
Behemecoatyl is probably the most complicated creature effect in this film. It has so many different factors to it that it became a little difficult to pull off.
We made a physical model of it, and required a number of people to operate. This thing had something like 60-some working claws on it.
The nature of the beast, literally the beast, is that it has a lot of tentacles, it has a lot of moving parts, and every one of those parts has to be controlled by somebody.
I knew from the script that it had to have multiple eyes, and I didn't want to do something that just had a mandible and was a giant ant or something like that. So it has some of the characteristics that aren't strictly insect characteristics. This bug is sort of the god bug. It has a stoic kind of a quality that's a presence. As we see at the very end, we catch a quick glimpse of a kind of a thermograph of the planet in which we see this is just a nodule of many, 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 many nodules that fill OM1. So this bug is the planet.
When the Behemecoatyl's claws poke out of the ground, it's been a big, huge rig with cables and 50 guys working this whole thing. And it's neat to see that do it kind of the old-fashioned way.
Robert would direct every single little aspect of it, and he had his hands on with every part of these shots in every way. It's like orchestrating a symphony, having a conductor, pulling all these various people together into a unified symphony of motion. So it was a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours.
This project, I'd have to say, is one of the most hands-on things that we've done. I've done most of the matte paintings myself and the creature design, and our crew very much, we all dug in and built the miniatures and blew the dirt around. My brother and myself worked on the miniatures, operated the cameras. So that takes us back to our roots, as I've thought of us many, many times as being filmmakers who happen to be working in visual effects.
It's an all-encompassing feeling to see it all come together on one piece, and it's all there, and I had my hands on it from beginning till end. And it's maybe no big deal for other people, but for me it was a sense of pride to be able to do that.
24 hours a day, you were just living this movie. It took up a whole year of my life, that's for sure. I mean, most of the movies I do don't do that, you know, and we had the time on this one to actually build stuff right.
One of the most effective ways to use visual effects is to do combination techniques. You do get much more dramatic effect, I believe, when you use combination. And we have found that in people that really seem to be just on the same page as what we're trying to do.
So I think we found a kind of a mind state that got everybody working almost like a band playing the same song all in sync. And so it's been very gratifying.